Now, where is this learning? Where is the seat of learning? Well, it actually is in the interconnections between neurons, not in the neurons themselves. The neurons are switching stations. They either fire or they do not, and there is nothing more to be said. They either fire or they do not. 1, 0. Now, when they fire, however, is determined by the synaptic interconnections to prior neuronal structures or proximate neuronal structure. Proximate structures. Proximate means close by. And so the actual learning process is the creation of interconnections between neurons. In other words, the synapses. That's the seat of learning. And most people haven't really stopped to consider that. They keep talking about neurons, and while neurons are certainly a part of the structure, again, they only fire or they don't fire. And that is it. So they are switching stations that allow then the thought wavefront, if you will, the thought pattern to be propagated to the next set of proximate neurons. And so their purpose is to propagate a switching station. And so what you have to do to make a machine that will learn is to allow it to generate its own both neuronal structures and the synaptic interconnections, that is, the neurons themselves and the synaptic interconnections. Now, for the most part, the brain has all the synapses it's going to have at the time of birth. Now, there are small exceptions to that in certain areas of the brain, but for the most part, when you lose neurons and they die, then a new set of interconnections has to be made to other neurons to take over the function of the dead neuron. So the brain itself then, for the most part, does not have the ability to create new neurons when neurons die. And again, there are exceptions to that in small areas of the brain. But in this machine, it will both create the interconnections between proximate neurons, and it will also create the neurons themselves as it goes along. And so therefore, it has to have 32K bytes would not even give you a beginning. You could barely do a small neuronal structure, much less the programs to support the creation of interconnections and creation of neurons. So the whole concept of having a propeller-based intelligent machine as the propeller comes out of the womb, that is, out of the factory, and onto a board, it has no such capability. It cannot support machine intelligence as it exists. So therefore, I had to design an auxiliary memory capability that was at least fast enough to be able to handle the propagation of the thought wavefront through the memory, that is, through the synaptic interconnections and the neurons themselves that are built in the memory. And so the machine itself, its intelligence is based upon having that external memory. Well, you cannot, with the speed of a thumb drive, use a thumb drive, so you can't use a USB connection. They're really not fast enough to serve the purpose that we need to serve. This expanded or ERAM is absolutely necessary for an intelligence to be impressed upon the propeller chip. Without that extra memory capability, it would just be impractical, not impractical, it would be impossible. And so, therefore, there must be a larger external memory. Now, I've taken that in 3 steps, as I said. That is the USB memory for a permanent storage device. And there, I don't care how fast it is. Even if it's slow, that's fine. We can wait for it to do the transfers that it needs to up into ERAM. And ERAM is basically where we hold all of the neurons and synaptic interconnections while the machine is doing its thought processes. So the USB drive actually doesn't enter into that. However, if we didn't have the USB drive and it lost power, or you turned it off, it would forget everything that I had learned up to that point. And so what we do is provide a function in the OS that allows the ERAM to be stored in an appropriate fashion. There is a format also that has to be followed to be stored in the flash drive. So I'm running out of time again on this segment, and we'll pick up on another segment later on.